Hello, it's Simon here, and today we're going to be talking about dextromethorphan. It's a common ingredient found in many cough and cold medications over the counter at pharmacies and many other grocery stores. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know that I don't recommend the use of any substance whatsoever. This is strictly for education and harm reduction, and for those who are going to experiment regardless. However, I'm going to tell you the best way to use dextromethorphan if you want to trip. Now, at first glance, I never ever thought that dextromethorphan was even a hallucinogen. It seemed more like a dirty high, a disassociative and nasty feeling that you just don't want to do. And that was because my dumbass, when first experimenting with it, purchased over-the-counter medications such as DXM and Robitussin and the infamous triple quercetin, which I've never done because it's fucking stupid. I know that there's ways to use triple quercetin where it's not dangerous, where you extract with cold water. You can watch a channel called Psych Tripper 666. He's a great guy who explains a lot about that, but I recommend solely that you purchase RoboCough, which is pure dextromethorphan hydrobromide, the only additive being flavoring, which also isn't very prominent, so the flavor is not going to be that great. But it's not about the flavor, we're not having a beer here. So like I said, at first whenever I have used it, and I would only do it once in a blue moon, and after I did a little research about it, I was like, oh, okay, so I get it. At first, I never took a high enough dose to experience any form of trip, and in fact, I even insulted it after my first time trying it, saying it was just a dirty, pathetic high, that it seemed desperate. And I think it honestly still is. When someone purchases over-the-counter medication to use it, it seems like something a crackhead would do. So that's why I say buy RoboCough. It takes less of a dose, and it's a lot safer and less nausea because it does not contain the additives such as guaifenesin, which induces nausea, which can also be counteracted with DPH, and potentiated. But if you don't want to do all that stupid extra shit, just use RoboCough if you want to trip on it. Now, DXM is a extended release form of dextromethorphan, Polysterex. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, and then triple quercetin also has acetaminophen in many of the tablets, and some other thing I can't even pronounce, nor do I remember, but it starts with a P. But I do not use triple quercetin. It's just a desperate and, very lackluster effect for such a high risk on your body. So that's just my subjective point of view. Now, this might be off topic, but it does connect. Spice, K2, the stupid ass synthetic marijuana known as K2. It's legal in many smoke shops. There is a big crackdown on it, luckily. People are still selling it in many smoke shops, and it seems to be legal in a lot of other places. And I think this is a very deadly, dangerous drug, very bad for your brain, and my accidental use of it, the experience I had made me open my eyes to dextromethorphan on how it's a lot more innocent than it seems on the forefront. Because when you first try it, it seems like a dirty high, especially if you're not going for a high dose. It seems like a shitty version of PCP, the poor man's PCP, or ketamine. And so, but that's on the forefront. And once you have had an experience with Spice or something like that, which is legal in a lot of places, you're like, wow, DXM is very innocent and it's a lot safer. Now, of course, that's not going with frequent use. When you're using it, dexing should be only done once in a blue moon. Same for acid, same for psilocybin mushrooms, unless you're microdosing mushrooms to get a medicated feeling for focusing. Because psilocybin mushrooms, when microdose, can cause a very similar effect to Adderall for those with ADHD. So I do recommend that for some people. But frequent use with DXM or acid is not something you should do. I believe it could cause psychosis. Hell, with DXM, it could cause neurotoxicity, serotonin syndrome, and you don't want to be on Plateau Sigma, which is not a good experience, I hear, which is from frequent use of DXM, also known as Plateau 5, but it's not necessarily a higher plateau, it's more of you're stuck like this, psychosis. So yes, do not use DXM often. Only do it, hell, just do it once or do it every so often. Now, I'm going to cut to the chase. This last time I did it, see, I'm 160 pounds, and so I'm not, you know, the biggest guy around. I didn't think I would need a lot, but I have dosed Robocough prior to this, and I did around the same amount, but never got a 4th plateau. But this time I blasted off because of the combination I did, which is very fucking unnecessary and stupid. What I did was I combined a benzo with it, but not on purpose. I didn't think it would potentiate it. Nor did I plan on tripping on DXM this night. But my friends, they gave me some Ativan because I have trouble sleeping. And not because I have insomnia. It's not chronic, it's more trauma-induced, if anything. So it was more the weak kinds, the 0.5, and you do not want to combine barbiturates or benzos or sedative hypnotics with any kind of dissociative or psychedelic drug. It's just not a good idea. And do not take any inspiration from me because I'm a fucking retard. So just putting that out there before I tell you this story. Now, I got home and I took one of the Ativan for sleep and I laid down, but it didn't seem to be working, so I took another one. Like I said, 0.5 milligrams. It's not very powerful. So I ended up taking around 5. Not all at once. I slowly kept taking them, and I didn't get anything more than a drowsy feeling, and not even the kind of drowsy that puts you to sleep, just kind of like, eh. So I realized, you know, I'm going to be up all night. You know, I didn't even get, I woke up very late that day anyways, so trying to sleep was just going to be ridiculous, but I was trying to change my schedule. So I had a bottle and a half of Robocough, you know, and, you know, like I said, I didn't think that this would shoot me to a 4th plateau, but the combination sure did. And so I had the whole bottle at once, and this was my first time chugging a bottle instead of dosing slowly with the cup. And I did that throughout the day, you know, the time I tripped before that, and all that did was cause a long dissociative day, and didn't really work out that well. So I was like, okay, so after researching a little bit, I was like, okay, I'm just going to chug this bottle. And I had some almond milk to chase it back. Best way to kill the flavor, definitely. And a couple minutes later, I decided to take the other half. So I never had a K-hole-like experience with Dextromethorphan before. But I knew that what I had taken would probably cause that. But I didn't know that it would be a 4th plateau type experience, or a high 3rd. So this combination definitely potentiated it. So as I laid down on the bed, instantly, after 20 minutes almost, it's not even that long, the onset of action with Robocough, in my experience, seems to be a lot faster than the stupid over-the-counter meds, which is another reason why you should use Robocough instead. Faster onset action, but that's subjective. I don't know if that's a universal thing. So you don't have, just take me with a grain of salt on that. That's just how it hit me. With Dextromethorphan, I was used to a slow come up dissociation, and then it kind of peaked at around a really intense disassociation where it seems like I'm in 3rd person. But this time, it kind of skipped that come up, and I instantly started getting closed eye visuals that I could control, which I've never had that happen on any other psychedelics, such as psilocybin mushrooms. Usually I lack the control of what I'm seeing. It's more based on the mood or the setting. But this time I had control. I could move these shapes around, and it was just simple closed eye visual shapes. This is where the chronological order might be a little mixed because I had blackout points. Now, DXM can be very amnesia-inducing, but I'm pretty sure it's the benzos combined with the DXM that caused some of the blackout. Now, the next thing I remember was a text from my brother who lives in Michigan. saying, sorry, I was in the other room. And I didn't know that prior to that. I called him. I attempted to call him. And so when he said, I'm in the other room, I stood up. And my legs felt shaky. I could hardly walk, you know, the infamous robo-walk. And this is the first time I ever had the robo-walk. And I see my brother in there, because I'm like confused as to why he says he's in the other room. And so I hallucinate him being there, but only for a few seconds before I call him again. And I tell him, yo, bro, I'm in the K-hole right now. And I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I said that, because I was on DXM, not ketamine, although they can be very similar. So I guess I wasn't too far off the mark with that, but not entirely sure why I said that. But he said I was acting really weird about it, and I don't really remember being on the phone with him for very long before I closed my eyes again, and then I opened them, and instead of being in my body, I'm looking down at myself like a floating consciousness, which the only time I've ever had anything like this happen before was on DMT. So at this point, you know, I should be thinking, holy shit, this is intense, but there was no anxiety, you know, involved with this. Now, I guess I was more calmed by the Ativan. So I'm floating around this room that I'm in, looking at myself, not knowing who that is laying there. And the visuals are still intense. I felt like another entity. It was much like a fly cam, kind of like the theater mode in Halo. That's the analogy I can make right now. So I open my eyes and I'm back in my body, and then it hits me. Holy shit, I am tripping balls. On DXM, I was questioning, like, did I do something else? I was like, oh my god, I mixed that Ativan, but it shouldn't be causing any form of, you know, psychedelic experience more than I'm used to with this dose. But then, like, I guess it was the amount I took at once with that. But I never had a trip like this, so I'm shocked at this point. But the anxiety quickly subsides, and I'm like, alright, well, let's just enjoy this. And I close my eyes again, and I'm back in this world of just impossible geometry. And then a lot of the visuals become more realistic. It seems like on DXM, the visuals aren't just shapes. A lot of the time, it's very possible things. It's surreal. So I was walking around in a store that isn't even around anymore. It was called Save-A-Lot. And so I'm walking around in the store, and I guess I'm young, and then I come back to the room, and I'm like, holy shit. I forget the English language in my mind. There was no internal language. It was just basic instinct. And I try to stand up again. And then I walk outside to have a cigarette, and I started lighting it. It took me probably like 15 minutes to actually, you know, pay attention to what I was trying to do. So I finally got to it. And I remember smoking the cigarette, and I was like, wow, this tastes horrible. And then I remember seeing myself in third person, not actually out of the body this time, but in my head, like, whoa, what is this dumbass doing? He's inhaling toxin, and he's inhaling toxins into his lung. Fucking idiot. Cigarettes are bad. I kept telling myself. I was like, wow, why am I doing this? It tasted horrible, you know? Usually drugs cause cigarettes to have more, you know, have more flavor or more enjoyment, but not this time. I found it to be something that was detrimental, which it is, you know? But, so I stopped. And that's a positive side note to DXM. That's another really innocent thing about it. It caused me to do that. So, and I wish it could be something that's more long-term with that. But it's all upon yourself. You cannot rely on drugs to quit cigarettes. That's all on you. But, you know, I'm a dipshit, so I gotta have my nick. And so, anyways, I go back in and I lay down again. This is where it gets really weird. I imagine myself as this 2D object. It was kind of like a sphere, but it was a circle, but it was more of a 3D sphere on a 2D plane, if that makes sense, rolling. And then it isolates itself within this void, but I could still see the sphere. And then another sphere starts circling around it. And the emotions I got from that was really strong, and I can't really explain it in words. It's kind of something that you would have to be there to understand. I'm seeing this sphere, you know, kind of rotate around it, kind of like a planet, kind of like the moon around the Earth. Except that's not the analogy I made in my head. I thought it was something else, and I don't know how to describe it. But it kept looping around, and every time it would do it, I got more scared. And this is the only time I got scared. But it was more of a panic attack than it was fear for my life. It was like panic each time it circled, but it would go away. And I didn't like it. It gave me kind of a palpitation feeling. If anyone's ever had that occur, you know, a heart palpitation, it felt kind of like that every time it would circle. And I realized this is gonna be forever. I am forever going to see this circle. And then there was a countdown, numbers, and I could hear a voice. And this is the only time I heard a voice from DXM. It was like 10, 9, and it was echoed, it was reverbed. It was like someone was speaking in a megaphone into another megaphone, going like 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, and then like at the end of the countdown, everything went black, and I opened my eyes, and then I melted into the bed, it felt like, and I went back into it, to the world where just different surreal moments, kind of like I'm at the store, I'm walking around, and it's much like dreaming, but more surreal, like I'm actually there. Now, it was crazy, the feelings I got when seeing this infinity loop. It felt like I was there for years, watching this ball just circle the other one. And that was probably one of the most intense moments I've had on any substance, and it came from DXM. So I didn't stay up the whole night. I actually eventually slept, and that is for sure the Ativan, because DXM is almost impossible to sleep on. You gotta wait until the afterglow typically to sleep, usually for me at least. I woke up and I did have an afterglow, but it was more 50-50 afterglow and hangover from the Ativan. It's cool to look back on. A lot of it's kind of not in chronological order. I don't know exactly the moment I decided I was going to sleep. I guess it just happened mid-trip. And it's very dangerous, the combination. Because, you know, you could stop breathing due to the combination. It could, you know, lead you to do something stupid and hurt yourself, fall, you know, cut yourself on something. You know, it's not a good idea. So I do not recommend any kind of benzo or, you know, barbiturate, any kind of pill at all mixed with dextromethorphan, unless it's like DPH for nausea, or, you know, some reefer. That's going to help with the nausea too, or even potentiate it, you know. And I didn't even smoke weed with this, so the fact that this experience was so intense is it's almost, I was dumbstruck by it. So that was, you know, the moment I realized, you know, the next day I was like, wow, there is some psychedelic properties to DXM, and I have changed my view on it. It seems like a more innocent thing, although there is some things in it that, you know, will leave you thinking a lot, like that whole infinity loop thing. That was not a very pleasant experience, but that was the only part of it that was unpleasant. The rest of it was just kind of a stagnant feeling, just like, yeah, I'm here, I exist, I think, or do I, you know, just, that's my 4th Plateau experience with dextromethorphan. Do I plan on doing it anytime soon? No, because I feel content with that. I think that if you have a really good experience on a psychedelic, then you should leave it at that. Unless there's some significant change in your life that you seek. But I feel like if you need to change, do it without a crutch, such as a drug. But that's just my point of view. So DXM, that was probably my last trip for a very long time. I do see maybe in the future doing it again with my friends. And so very interesting. And oh, I don't know if I mentioned I was alone that whole time. So yeah. I don't think you necessarily need a trip sitter for DXM unless you're going on a really high dose like that, because I feel like a trip sitter would have been a safer bet, because I could have very well, you know, fell asleep and not woke up again with that stupid combination. But luckily, my body bared through it. I'm very sorry, liver, but interesting stuff. Try it at least once, but be very careful. And happy dexing.